On December 26, 2024, a massive unidentified aircraft appeared in the skies above Chengdu, China. Nobody from the Chinese government said a word about it. No announcement or official statement of any kind. China had just revealed its sixth-generation fighter jet to the world, just flying in broad daylight over a populated city, as if daring anyone to say something about it. That aircraft, unofficially designated the J-36, features a tailless configuration, a distinctive three-engine layout, and a diamond-shaped wing optimized for extremely low radar observability. That was 8 months ago. Since then, China has flown 5 separate prototypes, each one different from the last, improving at a pace that has genuinely alarmed Pentagon planners. And America's answer of that jet, the F-47, has not flown a single time yet. Today we are breaking down exactly what the J-36 is, what changed across all 5 prototypes, why the pace of this program is unlike anything seen in modern aviation history, and what it means for the global balance of air power. Section 1. What is the J-36 and why does it matter? Before we get into the 5 prototypes, you need to understand what makes the J-36 fundamentally different from every fighter jet that came before it, including China's own J-20, which is already considered one of the most advanced stealth fighters on Earth. The J-20 is a 5th-generation aircraft. The J-36 is 6th generation, and it represents a completely different philosophy of how air combat works. 5th-generation fighters were built around one central idea: the stealth, make the aircraft invisible to radar, get close enough to fire first and win the engagement before the enemy knows you are there. 6th generation goes further. The defining characteristic of a 6th-generation aircraft is that the crewed fighter is not the primary weapon. It is the command node of a broader AI-managed kill network, operating alongside autonomous drones, controlling the electromagnetic spectrum, and directing lethal force across multiple domains simultaneously. The pilot inside the J-36 is not just flying a fighter, they are commanding a system. 3 engines and no-tail, diamond-shaped wings with internal weapons bays, and a physical size significantly larger than any current fighter. Because the mission it is designed for requires range, payload, and sensor capacity that a smaller airframe simply cannot provide. This is not an upgraded J-20. This is a completely different kind of aircraft for a completely different kind of war. Section 2. The 5 prototypes. What changed each time? Here is what makes the J-36 program genuinely remarkable and what is making Pentagon planners lose sleep. In normal aircraft development, a program builds one prototype and flies it extensively, identifies problems, and builds a second prototype with fixes and repeats that process slowly over years. The F-35 took over a decade from first prototype to operational service. The F-22 took longer. China is not doing that with the J-36. China is flying multiple different design configurations simultaneously, testing different solutions to the same engineering problems in parallel rather than in sequence. Each prototype changed something specific. The first prototype established the basic shape: 3 engines, a tailless diamond wing with massive internal volume, suggesting both long-range fuel capacity and large weapons bays. The second prototype configuration changed the air intakes and exhaust arrangement. Engineers were experimenting with how to manage airflow into 3 engines while maintaining a low radar cross-section. The third prototype appeared with a test probe removed from the nose, a sign that basic aerodynamic validation was complete and the program was moving towards systems testing. The fourth prototype showed further intake and landing gear refinements, detail engineering rather than fundamental shape changes, suggesting the basic configuration was becoming settled. The 5th prototype, spotted on July 23, 2026, combines the diverterless supersonic intakes introduced on later prototypes with recessed engine exhausts resembling those on the original aircraft. This unexpected combination suggests Chengdu is not following a strictly linear progression but is testing multiple architectures in parallel to find the best possible balance between radar stealth, engine efficiency, and flight control. Section 3. The 3-engine question. The J-36's 3-engine layout is the single most discussed and most misunderstood aspect of the entire program. Most fighter jets use 1 or 2 engines. 3 engines is genuinely unusual for a combat aircraft, and the immediate question is, why using 3 engines? The answer comes down to the J-36's mission profile. This is not a short-range air superiority fighter designed to protect Chinese airspace. It is designed for long-range power projection, specifically to operate in the Pacific, where the distances between bases and potential targets can stretch thousands of kilometers. With an estimated combat radius exceeding 4,000 kilometers, the the J-36 could directly threaten enemy refueling tankers and airborne radar platforms in the Pacific without relying on its own aerial refueling support. Targeting tankers and AWACS aircraft is enormously significant. Modern air forces depend completely on aerial refueling to extend the range of their fighters. If you can reach and destroy the tankers before the fighters they support can complete their missions, you effectively ground the entire opposing air force without ever engaging the fighters directly. The J-36 appears specifically designed for that mission. 3 engines provide the power needed for that range and payload without making the airframe even larger. They also provide redundancy. If one engine is damaged in combat, the aircraft can continue operating on 2. And 3 engines can potentially generate the enormous electrical power that next-generation sensors, electronic warfare systems, and directed energy weapons will require. The tailless design removes the vertical stabilizers that are one of the biggest radar reflectors on conventional aircraft. Eliminating them entirely dramatically reduces radar cross-section, though it also makes the aircraft harder to control at low speeds, which is why the flight control software on a tailless aircraft of this size is one of the most complex engineering challenges in the program. Section 4. China versus America. Who is actually winning? This is the question everyone is asking. China is flying 5 prototypes while America's F-47 has not flown yet. Does that mean China is winning the 6th generation race? The honest answer is more complicated than the headlines suggest. China has reached the starting line for public flight testing. It has not crossed the finish line of operational capability, and by the Pentagon's assessment, it is roughly a decade from doing so. Flying a prototype and fielding a combat-ready aircraft are 2 completely different things. America's F-47 position is less alarming than it looks from the outside. Boeing won the F-47 engineering and manufacturing development contract in March 2025. Air Force Chief of Staff General David Alvin confirmed in September 2025 that Boeing had already begun manufacturing the first F-47 airframe, and at the February 2026 AFA Warfare Symposium, General Dale White stated the program was doing exceptionally well and remained on track for a 2028 first flight. The apparent American inactivity is deceptive for a specific reason. Boeing's experimental NGA demonstrators first flew in 2019 and 2022, accumulating hundreds of flight hours, validating stealth shaping, adaptive propulsion concepts, and 6th-generation sensor integration before the F-47 contract was awarded. America did its experimental flying in secret. China is doing its experimental flying in public. Neither approach is inherently better. They just look completely different from the outside. So the real picture is this. China has a head start in public prototype testing, but is years from operational capability. America has a head start in classified systems development, but is years from first flight of the actual production aircraft. Both programs are targeting the mid-2030s for initial operational capability. Neither side is as far ahead or as far behind as the optics suggest. Section 5. What J-36 means for the rest of the world. The J-36 does not just affect the US-China competition, it reshapes the calculations of every air force on Earth. And here is how. Every country that currently relies on 5th-generation fighters, F-35 operators across 20 nations, countries operating the J-20 or J-35 will face a credibility gap when the J-36 and F-47 become operational. A 5th-generation aircraft that was considered cutting-edge in 2026 may face 6th-generation opponents by 2035. And the gap between those generations in sensor range, electronic warfare capability, and drone teaming effectiveness could be as large as the gap between 4th and 5th generation was. That architectural difference matters enormously. If the J-36 is primarily a command and control platform that directs other weapons rather than primarily a fighter that engages directly, then countering it requires destroying not just the J-36 itself, but the entire network it commands. That is a fundamentally harder problem than shooting down a conventional fighter. The 6th generation race is no longer a future concern. It is happening right now in the skies above Chengdu, and the pace of what China is doing with the J-36 has already changed how every serious air force on Earth is thinking about the next decade. 5 prototypes in 8 months with 3 distinct design configurations and a 3-engine tailless platform designed to reach targets 4,000 kilometers away while commanding drone wingmen and threatening the tanker fleets that modern air forces depend on. The J-36 is not a finished aircraft or combat ready, and China China's timeline to actually fielding it in meaningful numbers runs into the 2030s. But what the pace of this program tells us about China's aerospace industrial capability is arguably more significant than the aircraft itself. A country that can design, build, and fly 5 distinct prototype configurations of a 6th-generation fighter in less than a year has built an industrial machine that no Western nation currently matches in raw development tempo. America's F-47 answer is coming, better funded, more secretly developed, and backed by decades of operational stealth experience that China has not yet accumulated. The race is real, and the stakes are the highest they have been in aviation since the jet age began, and it is moving faster than almost anyone expected. Make sure to subscribe for more videos.